Hello, ladies, gentlemen, everyone in between and beyond. My name is Taylor, and welcome to the first impression video for Lamplighters League, the mix of real-time with pause and turn-based tactics game developed by Harebrained Schemes and recently published by Paradox Interactive. Now, this game came out on October 3rd, 2023, and goes for $66.99 Canadian, or your original equivalent, but is also on Game Pass, where I would highly recommend you play it, as I personally love and quite frequently use Game Pass. To be fully transparent, Game Pass has not sponsored, endorsed, or in any way supported this video. I just recommend it because, again, that is how I play many of these games, and there's a lot of games that come out with a day one release. So I will always push for Game Pass if there's a game on there that I've played and I'm making a video for. Now, at the time of this recording, I have only put in about an hour and a half into the game to keep it within that 2-hour Steam return window, and unfortunately for me, I believe that's about all I'm gonna play. I will get into it in a little bit, but this is definitely not my kind of game. I still wanted to give it a look because these types of games have surprised me. So with that being said, let's get into the story. So as far as I can tell, this takes place in an alternate universe, 1930s, 1940s area of Europe, where the pseudo-Nazi party is kind of consorting with demons, consorting with the elder gods in some capacity, and you control a ragtag group of mercenaries who are replacing the former Lamplighters League. They were clearly meant to be a stand-in for something like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, or just other kind of popular comics groups, say the Avengers, again with a 1940s kind of twist on them. So you are, in a sense, replacing these individuals as they were all taken out by the big bad evil guy. And when you do this job for the mysterious person who hired you, I can't remember his name, I honestly didn't care, it's revealed that this special deck of tarot cards, effectively, has decided that you were worthy of changing the world, and so he continues to fund your expeditions and exploits against the evil organization. That is genuinely as far as I got. I did the tutorial mission, and I did one regular mission, which again, I think was a tutorial, and I left it off at a crossroads, picking between two separate characters to recruit to my party. So, as far as I can tell, the story is pretty bare bones, but most often you don't really play games like this for the story. So think games like XCOM or Desperados, or others in that genre. I've not played Desperados myself, but it's kind of, again, what I would compare it to if I had to look at it, but it is certainly closer to XCOM, I would say, in terms of its level of story. You know, you don't really feel like you're going to care about the story, though I can see how it's going to unfold in later gameplay changes, which we'll get into in a minute. So we're introduced to three characters whose names I can't remember. I think one was Latif, and one was maybe Tommy, or some generic, like, American hero, burly, broad type person, and then I don't remember the female character's name, unfortunately. And it left off with a mission where I could recruit one of two female characters. One was a deadly assassin, and one was a doctor, I believe. Now, I have looked into a number of other things to know that those won't necessarily make gameplay changes, but again, we'll get to that down the line. And from doing my research on how long to beat, as well as other articles on this game, it'll take you about 20 to 30 hours. So, you know, take that for what you will in terms of how much you can really get out of the story per se, because I do think this game is absolutely going to come down to its gameplay, which for me was a bit hit and miss, but I will say this is not my typical type of game. With that being said, let's actually discuss the gameplay. So your moment to moment is kind of broken up in two sections. The first section is the real-time with pause that I'd mentioned at the beginning, where you quite literally control either an individual character or a group of characters, and you sneak around the map. Now, you can hit R on the keyboard, I don't know what it would be for a controller, to go into recon mode. Meaning you can look throughout the map within, a limited range, and see if there are potential enemies, hazards, or even resources to pick up as you go through the mission. Then you move, again, either between one or three characters at the same time. One is always going to be sneakier than three, and using these characters, you're able to perform a handful of special abilities. So the Sneak class is able to do just like a super silent takedown of one enemy from behind, and they're a lot harder to see in general. The Bruiser class can charge and take down, as far as I've been able to tell, 3 enemies at the same time. I don't know if, because it's a straight line, if that would be more enemies provided they were in that line, or if there is a limit to the number you can knock out at one time. And then the last class, who I can't quite remember, had a lockpick on them, so it gave you access to more of the either hidden areas or areas that were just genuinely locked away that you had to access via a lockpick system. So each of them came certainly with their strengths, but the problem is, for me, that those strengths were pretty limited. So for the Sneak and the Bruiser, they could each use their takedown ability 3 times total per mission. Now, you can decide when you want to go loud in terms of activating the turn-based combat and like initiating a proper gunfight by hitting control on the keyboard. Again, I don't know what to be on controller. So you do have the freedom to engage in that turn-based combat whenever you feel like, though it does engage immediately if you're caught by a guard. It's just, it felt, and I'm sure I was playing this wrong. I'm absolutely 100% confident I was not playing as well as I should have. I was playing far too aggressively with how many people I knocked out, but it felt like I really ran out of charges pretty quickly in terms of, again, the knockdown abilities or the silent takedown abilities. Because you only get 3 charges, and I would use it to knock out 5 or 6 or 7 guards, because that takedown is actually really, really good. I love the Bruiser. But that would be so early on in the mission, I would be without the necessary resources to properly sneak through other areas and leave myself open to a much bigger gunfight later on in the mission. So I will say, I am not good at stealth games. I am not good at games where, you have to be sneaky and you kind of have to control yourself, because I sometimes just go full on murder hobo, or I think, no one can say anything if they're all dead, is kind of my solution to that. So obviously I was not playing the game the way the developers intended, but I was playing how I wanted to have fun with it, and it kind of limited my fun. Now, as I say, when you get caught or when you choose to activate it, you can activate the tactical turn-based combat. So again, akin to your XCOMs, your Wasteland 3, your Gears Tactics. And then this gives you a wider variety of actions in terms of what you can do, but it's more limited than I would care for. So you have your basic Overwatch, you have your basic shooting abilities, though interestingly, the Sneak seems to have 1 gun. The Lockpick person, at least the one they gave me, had 2 guns, meaning he could shoot 2 different targets or the same target twice, and the Bruiser only had melee. But the problem I ran into is they always only got 2 attacks. Now, I understand that's pretty standard for most of these games. I don't know, there are other games that I've played that have mixed up the formula more that I really appreciate, and it's hard for me to go back to the simple 2 action point system and just get the same enjoyment out of it. So I have certainly been tainted and, spoiled by other games, so I understand that will color my view, but I want to lay it out on the table. You also have the ability to use items you either purchase or pick up in the environment. So as far as I can tell, you can pick up bandages for healing, you can pick up grenades to throw a grenade, and other materials. I'm not sure what else you can do with it, though I know there are environmental interactions, so you can electrify water, you can throw like an electric mine to stun or knock out enemies, you can shoot oil to make it catch on fire or cause an explosion. So there are a number of little environmental interactions that you can engage with, but I don't know how limited they would be beyond things like water or oil, as I didn't see any past that, again, second mission. So I don't know exactly how fleshed out that system is, but it felt a little bare bones and missing some of the quality of life changes we had with other games of this style. Now, these missions are pretty long. As I say, I got through the tutorial and I got through the first proper mission, I should say. And that took me, again, about an hour and a half. I was pausing here or there to take note of something, or I was watching cutscenes. So I was maybe playing it a little slower than I would normally. They are not short missions by any means, and will often have you traversing large sections of a pretty large map, to be honest, usually filling out multiple objectives kind of one after another. So in the tutorial, you had to find the rest of your team and then get out of there with the pilot, because there was not unkillable, but a super difficult boss enemy. Now, I was playing on the easiest difficulty, and I was getting wiped by this boss. It was crazy. So obviously, it's a not necessarily meant to lose fight, it's a meant to run from kind of fight. And then the second mission had me locating and then destroying a specific machine that the bad guys were using. I don't know. It's very bare bones, and I did not care at all while playing it about the story, which did mean I was less immersed in the world. I didn't care as much about the characters. I didn't care as much about the gameplay. So it definitely needed to pull a lot more weight for me to properly enjoy it. But again, that's just me. That's the point of a first impressions video. Now, when you're off the field, in my opinion, it gets a little more interesting, but it's also far too limited again. So throughout the game, you are collecting supplies, whether that's bandages, grenades, other equipment. You're also collecting money, so you can buy things. And basically, when you're back at home base, you can buy, as far as I can tell, again, I didn't have access to it because I didn't go far enough, the offensive equipment like grenades and things, supplies like bandages, but also potentially armor or defensive type items, and gun modifications to make your weapons, I'm assuming, either hit harder, fire more, fire at longer range. I'm not 100% sure. I did not have full access to those. So there is certainly a level of customization that you get with each character that's actually reinforced further by the skill tree system. So this was something I didn't like because it wasn't well explained. When you finish a mission, you get, X number of skill points. I think I usually got 6 for that mission that I completed. What I didn't understand, and that I found out very quickly and unfortunately, is those skill points are shared among all the team that went on that mission. So if you had sent 3 people, they don't each get 2 skill points. You have a collective 6 skill points to spend as you wish among those characters. Now, obviously, the price of each skill will go up as you kind of get, to higher levels of it. But I was under the impression, and this was my fault, I'm sure I missed something, that because I got 6 points, each individual character would get 6 points, or maybe each individual character would get 2 points. But then I ended up burning all 6 on 2 of the characters, leaving 1 high and dry. I appreciate it from the standpoint that, hey, maybe I want to focus on just this one character, but I need to take the other 2 along for certain types of utility. But it feels really limited in how much they give you, or rather if they're going to give you free reign among 3 characters. What I would rather it have done is force my hand, in the sense that it would say, like, okay, character A gets 2, B gets 2, C gets 2, and evenly distribute it. Or maybe make it a little clearer that this is a collective skill point pool. Because it does force more interesting decisions on the part of the player. I totally get that. It would have me considering, okay, what do I really want to push for in person A versus B versus C? And which one is going to be the most immediately useful versus which one might be more useful in the long term. So there's certainly a trade-off and an element of customization and choice that'll help your team feel different than the rest, but I feel like it was not well enough explained, or I definitely missed something, which is also a problem. Your players shouldn't have the ability to miss something. That meant I was just a little overwhelmed at, trying to pick between all of them, because I didn't know what was good, I didn't know what was bad, I didn't know what direction to go in. And they're very limited skill trees, mind you. They go, I believe it's 5 layers deep and 3 layers across. But they also have prerequisites, like to get, level 3, you have to get level 2 of that skill. It felt both underwhelming and overwhelming at the same time in terms of the number of choices versus the quality of those choices, because many of them were very small changes. In addition to those changes and customizations, you also have the tarot card system. So the tarot cards, to me, represent an interesting, but unfortunately, as far as I can tell, shallow system. At the end of every mission, you're given a series of tarot cards, which are going to give different unique bonuses as well as potentially disadvantages to whichever characters you assign them to. And as far as I understand, each one falls into kind of like a set category, and if you equip, I think it's 2 or more in a specific category, you get a set bonus just for having more of that ability, or more of that type of ability rather. And so I can see like some interesting complexity coming in there, but I don't know how random those set effects will be, or how random the effects that you get through those tarot cards will be, or if you can change it after you've equipped it to a character. So I don't know how permanent those upgrades are. So those are all things you would have to probably look up, and I would recommend looking up before picking up this game, because there is the possibility, the potential there for it to be a really interesting and complex system, but right now it just feels kind of shallow because you get seemingly unrelated upgrades to the mission you ran, and then you decide which characters are going to get that particular upgrade. It very much feels like it railroads you into deciding on your builds early in game, especially if you can't change what the tarot cards are, which tarot cards are equipped to which characters. If you are able to change it, then this is effectively not a moot point, but it's a less concerning point, because then you can say, okay, I have a better understanding of what this character does, what this class does, and then you can adjust the tarot cards accordingly to really fit a proper build. But if it's locked in stone and you don't have a full idea right off the bat of where you want to go with that character or what would be effective, and you're not the kind of person to look up guides for it, it's really going to hinder and hamper your experience. I also wanted to talk about the additional characters that I did not have a chance to recruit, as I got bored. To be honest, I stopped caring near the end. I did Google kind of what that looks like just to have more information for the sake of the video, and it appears as though the different characters will still fall into one of the 3 class archetypes that I've introduced earlier in the video, but they'll have their own unique ability. Now, I don't know what those unique abilities are, as I did not look them up, and it does look like there's a good collection of characters for each class. I think there was about 5 or so it should balance out to about 15 characters total. And the game was very clear that you had to pick one character to go after. However, the other character is not locked out at that point. They just become unavailable for a certain period of time. So you have to run, X number of missions while the heat dies down and you're able to finally get back to that other character. So as far as I can tell, no decisions in terms of character recruitment are locking you out of another character. Now, I don't know if the characters would have any sort of relationship mechanic or system like you might see in XCOM 2. There was nothing that appeared to me to be the case. Like there was nothing that was maybe grayed out or inaccessible right now that might become available later. So there was no indication to me that you could change a character's relationship for bonuses or potentially debuffs. Now, it's a really interesting system having, classes, but then giving each particular character a unique trait, something that is wholly their own, and they have it because it's who they are. But it runs into the same problem I've realized that I found with all of their systems. They're a good idea, they've got potential, they're not as fleshed out or as explored as I would like them to be. They're just very surface level, and they're missing, especially in the gameplay department, some of the quality of life changes that other similar titles have provided us. So it doesn't feel as nice as it could, especially in late 2023, when we've got a banger suite of games this year. The other thing that I felt was really lacking is the customization. So, as I've mentioned Wasteland 3 and Gears Tactics earlier in the video, I feel it's appropriate for me to bring them up now. Both of those games allow for massive customization, not only, the main characters, quote-unquote, of Gears Tactics, but of every single character, main or side, in Wasteland 3 especially. You can make all of your own Rangers, customize their armor, customize their weapons, customize their appearance. Gears Tactics similarly gives you so many customization options, and I will absolutely be making a video on Gears Tactics in 2024 because I love that game. And it hurts more because I like that game, because I'm passionate about a game in this genre, for me to play this and go, it has potential, but it's not there right now. Like, it's not what I want it to be. And maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong places or trying to look for the wrong things. But to me, if you're going to put in the customization, let me go all the way. I've never played XCOM 2, though I do own it, and I've seen full playthroughs, and I've seen how much you can customize those characters. So seeing this set of characters that I understand are meant to be story significant in some way, just kind of, I don't know, I'm bored because I don't care about these characters, and you're giving me the option to customize them a little bit, but it feels like I could swap out any of them for someone else of the same archetype or the same, kind of trope character archetype, and it wouldn't feel any different. Or if it did, it would be so minor I wouldn't mind the change. There's just nothing unique that stands out about what they have that makes it justified in being its own thing. It all feels not necessarily too generic, but too common to be left as it is. It feels like it needs to be expanded on more and made into its own thing. Like, I want to be able to play this game and go, okay, this is an experience I can only get with Lamplighters League, or I can only get with a small handful of other games. Right now, it just feels way too lost in the slew of great turn-based tactical RPGs and turn-based tactical shooters that are out there. The XCOMs, the Wasteland 3s, the Gears Tactics, and so many more. I'm not immersed in this world, but again, I can name those 3 right off the bat that I would prefer playing. Wasteland 3 and Gears Tactics, I believe, are still on Game Pass. And they're fantastic games that I would absolutely recommend you play before you play Lamplighters League. This, to me, feels like it's going to be enjoyed by the kind of person who plays a lot of these types of games and has played all of the major ones, to the point where they want something, you know, that feels very familiar with just a different coat of paint. So if that is you, and you're super interested in this game, by all means, go check it out. You know, I'll have the Steam page linked in the description down below. But for me, it was just too little. There wasn't enough there to really grab me. Yes, I'm not the biggest fan of this genre. I've discovered that if you can create that hook, if you can create that one unique feeling, I'll play your game through to the end. I'll happily put in, you know, 30, 40 hours into the game, but it was so shallow in terms of its story. It had a nice presentation and nice graphics. There was so much untapped potential with their systems and the lack of depth and complexity they could have had in there that it lets itself down. It gets halfway and it stops before the finish line. Take that for what you will. Those were my first impressions of this game. I think it's good, but I think it falls short of greatness by its own merit. And, you know, again, make your own opinions. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I do actually enjoy making these kinds of videos because it helps me understand more about what I enjoy with games, what I don't enjoy with games, and why I do or don't enjoy new experiences. And Game Pass is perfect for that because it lets me do it for a much lower price than if I was buying all these games myself. Now, with that being said, if, you know, you're interested in my thoughts or I've helped you potentially make a purchase decision, consider a like, comment, subscribe, you know, the YouTube stuff. I would love to see the channel grow even more. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!